if you do that, then don't put the back of the photo in contact with the front of the next photo because the ink or pencil will rub off on it. So then put the pictures back to back. Otherwise, you're going to mark up the photo side of the picture because it's slightly sticky from the, well, whatever they use to produce the image. Okay. Ideally, you want to put the pictures in a little envelope and then staple it to the N400 form without actually stapling a hole through the photos. If you just paper clip them on the front loose, they're going to fall out, they're going to get lost. And in the interview, they're going to be told, oh, run across the street and pay $14 at the photo shop and get new pictures. So, okay, any questions about what you attach to the application? All right. What happens after you file it? I'm going to run through this real quick, then we'll use the last 25 minutes to go over the form. You send in your application. You get a receipt. Yay. You get a biometrics appointment. Scary, but it just means they're going to fingerprint you and take your picture. Sorry, not take your picture. This is not a green card application. They're going to fingerprint you. They call it biometrics. But you go in, you get fingerprinted, and that's so they can check to see if you have any type of criminal record that might disqualify you from becoming a citizen. It tells you when and where to go. And then a few months later, depending on which district you're in, 3 to 6 months later, you will get an interview notice. Usually they mail them out at least 3 or 4 weeks before the interview. Okay. It's possible to have a delay because the FBI has to run a security clearance on everybody. And I had this lady she's 70-some years old. You know, she's from Yemen and she has a very common name. And we think what happened is her middle name plus her last name matches somebody from Yemen who did something bad. And so the FBI hasn't cleared her yet, even though she's this elderly lady who is probably not really very dangerous, but there's apparently a partial match with her name to somebody in the FBI database, and so they won't schedule her interview yet, which is really irritating her. But this used to be a huge delay. Now they promised they try to resolve all those within 6 months. So we're hopeful. It's been 4 months. We're hopeful that by the end of 6 months they'll actually interview her. Okay, you go to your interview. You answer questions in English unless you qualify for language waivers. You take the Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I skipped the history test item. Let's go back to the front for a second. You do have to take a history test in addition to the reading and writing test for English. And even if you're qualified for the 55-15 English waiver or the 50-20 English waiver, you still have to take the history test. It'll just be translated for you. Now, if you get the disability waiver and the doctor certifies that you're severely disabled so that you can't learn a new language like English, and you can't learn about U.S. history and government even in your native language, then and only then can you be excused from the history test. So the age-based waivers only apply to the language requirement, not the history and government. So the same website that I mentioned will let you take a look at the history test. The questions on the new test are probably a little more difficult than the old ones. They're not difficult if you have a high school diploma, but if you grew up as a farm and had 3 years of formal education 40 years ago, they're pretty difficult. Why do we have 3 branches of government? Well, you can answer it shortly. You can say separation of powers, or so no branch has too much power. But that's an example of a question. Okay, so they're designed to make people think about U.S. government or U.S. history. And you can take a look at them at the uscis.gov website. But they ask 10 questions. You have to get 6 of them correct. So
out of a possible 100.
Right, there's 100.
And all the answers are on the website.
Yes. So there's a list of, there are no trick questions. The questions and answers are there. They're given to everybody to study. They ask 10 out of the 100 questions that have been approved for test questions, and you have to get 6 correct at your interview. Okay, so after you get your interview notice, you go to the interview. They talk to you in English. They make you read, write. They give you a history test. If you pass all of that, and there are no issues with your application, the FBI has cleared you, your fingerprints are clear, or you have something very, very old and very, very minor, and you've presented the final record of disposition of that arrest, and it doesn't make you deportable, and it's way outside the 5 years. If you're clean, or you have something that's so old that they're not going to bother you about it, and it doesn't make you deportable, then after your interview, they would schedule you for an oath ceremony, and you would attend that and be sworn in and become a U.S. citizen. If you don't pass the English or the history test at your first interview, they will schedule you about 2 to 3 months later for a second interview. And that, at that point, if you fail that, you can file an appeal form and get a third interview, or you can just start all over again with a new application. They cost about the same, $605 versus $675. Okay, if something's missing from your application, for example, you told them that you were late on your taxes, and they said, well, what's the deal? You say, I want a payment plan. They said, well, if we want proof of that, they give you 30 days to return it to them by mail. It is possible that you get a request for evidence that you have to send in before they'll schedule you for an oath, even if you passed the English and history part of the interview. If you are applying based on the 3-year rule as spouse of a U.S. citizen, when you go to your interview, you have to bring proof that you're legally married to this person, proof of when they became a citizen, and proof that you've been living together for that full 3-year period. Okay? So that would be lease or home ownership or mortgage papers, car insurance, health insurance, bank records, tax records, birth certificates of kids that you have. Anything that shows that the two of you are, in fact, living together and sharing your life, and so that your wonderful spouse is just filling you with the wisdom of U.S. citizenship every day. It's really funny looking back at the history of that requirement, but they basically said if you live with a U.S. citizen, then you're probably acculturating more rapidly than somebody who's not living with a U.S. citizen. So, but you have to prove, in order to get this special 3-year rule treatment, that you actually have been living with them. It's okay if they're gone for short periods on business trips or something, or vacations, but if they're extended parts where you're not living together, then that's not going to cut it. Yes?
Do you still need to be married to that person?
Yes, you do. Thank you. You cannot have a final order of divorce all the way through the day that you become a citizen. So let's say I go to my interview, we're still married, but the divorce becomes final the day before I get sworn in as a citizen. Boom, I'm not eligible anymore. Okay? So generally, if somebody is qualified to use the 5-year rule, use the 5-year rule. Because if you use the 3-year rule, when they go to the interview, they got to bring all this crap, and it's just not worth it if you qualify to use the rule as a permanent resident for 5 years. Okay? If you were gone too long on a trip, and you don't want to wait 4 years and a day, you want to wait 2 years and a day, then it might be worth using the 3-year rule. Or if I just got my green card 3 years ago, and I don't want to wait 2 more years, then yes, use the 3-year rule. But if you have a choice, just because somebody is married to a citizen and has been for 10 years, does not mean you have to use that box. Okay, you can check off, I've had my green card for at least 5 years. No problem. But you do, if you're going to use that, you have to remain married the entire time, all the way through becoming a citizen. And if in fact you're formally, legally separated, but not yet divorced, that would be an issue as well, because that would imply that your marriage is ending. So that would be an issue. Okay. At the oath ceremony, you have to bring your green card, you hand in your green card, you take the oath, they give you a citizenship certificate. You can then apply for a U.S. passport if you want one. Not required to apply for a passport. Okay. If somebody moves during their application's pendency, you see the change of address section here. There's instructions about how to update the address. It is important because if you don't get your fingerprinting notice or you don't get your interview notice,